Who are some of the firms that we're talking about? The ones on this page and many more. We have about 170 firms that we work with across corporate strategy and consulting, not just management consulting, but other kinds of consulting as well. And our general profile is that we would want to work there. So we don't send you jobs that we think are not fun or not worth your time. We're really a filter for those jobs, and we touch that process to make sure that you're getting the best of the best. So what are we going to do today in the session? We're going to first of all just do a quick overview of the 4 steps of case prep. I'm going to tell you why we built this. I built this prep plan. So that's why I'm teaching the call today, taking ownership for it. And if you don't like it, talk to me. I'm the boss of this prep plan. The first step is market sizing and structure. So I'm going to walk through why we care about that, what we expect you to learn. And in some cases, why you actually might need to linger inside that section before moving on, because our guide is to try to get you ready in 28 total steps. We've called it today the 4-week prep plan because we're about 4 weeks out for when the first interviews are going to be happening for a lot of the firms. We want you to be ready 4 weeks from today. But for some of you, you have a little bit longer. We're going to tell you where you could flex this program. For some of you, you're actually not going to start the program, even though we tell you to start today. You're not going to start it today. On a Monday, you're going to start it on a Friday next week. You're going to start it the week before your interviews. So we're going to tell you a little bit about how to flex that first step and how quickly you need to move through it. The second step is on fast math, mental math, right? How to do speed math and brainstorming. The step 3 is going to be on business formulas, really deepening your business understanding. And step 4 is on firm specific case and fit. One of the most common questions that we get is, when do I need to start casing with a BCG case if I have a BCG interview? And our answer is embedded in that step number 4. At the end, like I mentioned, we will put up a link in the chat for this prep plan for all of you who are at a partner school already, or if you are a black belt or a super prep, you have access to this plan embedded inside the platform, and you can follow along with it inside there as well. So why did I build this plan? Why, what was the cry that you gave us that led to this plan being built? And why do we believe that it builds structured mastery? So let me just tell you one thing. There's a difference between a plan and a plan that wins. This is the plan that wins. And that is a super important distinction, because a lot of you want to do steps, but we want you to win. We want you to get job offers. We get paid $0 extra if you get job offers. We care really deeply about the alignment with our clients. And we know that we will not be able to build this business and do what we do year after year if we do not help you win. And so it is necessary for us to be a part of that. But we also just fall in love with you. When we meet you, we think you're amazing, and we want you to get what you want out of this process. So I think that there is nothing to be gained from anything that is wasted in this prep process. But having a completely bespoke prep process for every single person is not feasible either, especially at the scale that we have now reached and the success that we've reached in the process. So we've built this so that you can really structure your process so you know when to move on and where to go. What is flexible in this plan is how quickly you move through each of the pieces. Because instead of in week 1, for example, some of you might take 4 weeks on week 1. Some of you might take 1 day on week 1, or some of you might already be past it based on the prep that you've done. So I just think that that's an important thing to highlight. Week 1, market sizing and structure. Why did I put it first? Why does it matter? It preps you for the natural uncertainty of cases, for out loud communication. If you are not ready to talk to me, you are not ready for a case interview. So these are very simple problems that really trip a lot of people up because they're just not used to talking through it. And the third piece that it helps you with is structured thinking. You have to break down the algebra of a problem. You have to put insights into it, and you have to develop some of the math. So that structured process that needs to carry from the beginning, understanding the problem, through to the structure of the issue, through to the analytics, is really a great important piece of market sizing and structure. We have a lot of schools that come to us. I was with an MBA program last week that was like a little bit less on market sizing. And I just say, like, to your peril. Right? If y'all want to skip over market sizing, you are still not going to succeed. So you can skip over it and not succeed, or you can not skip over it and succeed. These are your choices. We're really strong about the fact that market sizing is the underpinning. And this comes, and by the way, if some of you sit with me in the hot seat in case camp and I do a case structure drill with you and you can't do it, the next first thing I'm going to do with you is not another structure drill. It's going to be a market sizing question, because I'm going to pressure test where you're falling apart, and we're going to figure out what that is, and then we're going to go get it fixed. Once you're past that, so once you've built market sizing and you understand how to build a structure, you don't actually have the content to build great structures yet, but you can build a management consulted 4x3 structure that looks, walks, and smells like a structure. Then we can move you on to fast math and brainstorming. These are the other two key components of the case. And this preps you to interpret and connect analytics and insight inside the case. One of the biggest issues that a lot of our people tell us is that you cannot connect the dots between something that happened 5 minutes ago and now. In fact, in our healthcare panel last week, there was this kind of mic drop moment when two of the interviewers said that in the past few weeks, they have heard from candidates who have been using AI during their interviews to ask the questions, to answer the questions. So they have AI on, it's interpreting the questions, giving them an answer, and then they're reading that answer out back to the interviewer. Problem with that is that when I ask you to connect it to the thing that happened before, you can't do it. So interpreting and connecting analytics and insight, which is, by the way, the first, other than the fact that somebody was reading something off the screen, which is super obvious, that was the first thing that clued them in to the fact that this was not the other human's response. They pressure tested it and it broke apart, and they just immediately dismissed them out of the interviews. So math and brainstorming prepare you for this critical thinking process that will be so essential and increasingly essential when AI does the easy stuff to add value inside consulting and corporate strategy. Week 3 is business formulas. So once you understand what to do in each of the functional pieces of a case, now you need to understand how to do it well. This is how I built this. We walk through different kinds of case frameworks. We do reps on those, and you do a detailed case inside each one of those structured frameworks so that you develop the business understanding to have these advanced senior conversations. When you're meeting with somebody where your offer is on the line, you need to be able to hold your own, push back on them, bring in new ideas that they didn't have before. That kind of senior conversation is only formed when you have deep understanding of not just business formulas, not how to calculate them, but how to apply them to business problems inside the case. And then week number 4 is a firm specific prep and fit. 20% of your approach should be tailored to firms when you have the offer. So we generally recommend, not the offer for an interview, right? So week 1, week 2, and week 3 can and should all happen before you schedule a first round interview, which is why we're starting now, not when you're going to want to start your interview prep, which is on July 5th, after the July 4th weekend, right? That's why we're starting today, because we want you to be ready for tailoring your prep process when you get into that final piece. Our June cohort for Black Belt is always our biggest one every year. We accommodate for it by adding some extra seats. And we also add staff time to support y'all in this process. But we want you to finish before the end of this month, week 1, week 2, and week 3 of the prep plan, if you are planning to interview this summer. Now, for some of you that are joining us that are MBAs or PhDs that have slightly different timelines, just track this backwards. If you're a first-year MBA, I would like for you to have week 1 done before you start your program, week 2 done before Thanksgiving, and week 3 done before Christmas. Then week 4 is going to be the interim between Christmas and your interview. So you're going to flex this as and when you need to around your schedule so that you don't peak too early or become too robotic in your casing process. So let's dive into the week 1 overview for market sizing and structure. What does it include? Well, it's 7 days or 7 steps. If you have a choice between pacing this out, I would rather not have you do 7 days in advance. I would rather have you do 2 days at a time with breaks in between. And so if you have extra time, do a little bit more on each day. It helps you practice for the mental stamina that you'll need inside the interview. So day 1, we have inside our case course a few modules on market sizing cases, and that you will do 3 market sizing cases. Also, we provide links to 3 specific potential cases that you can do inside our case library. On day 2, 3 more market sizing cases, different problems, different geographies. Day 3 is 4 more market sizing cases. In total, in days 1 through 3, you get 10 market sizing cases, which to us, if you do 10 market sizing cases out loud with a partner, you are ready to move on to the next piece of this process. From then, we move you into a case course where we intro what a case interview is. That's talking about business strategy cases, not market sizing cases. And then we teach you the profitability framework, the kind of big daddy of all frameworks. If you don't understand, it's going to show. If you use words like cost and price conflated inside the interviews, it's going to show as well. So we address that. We also encourage you to do your first 10 structure drills, which gives you 4 categories, 3 data points in each one of the categories. In addition, we ask that you complete 2 profitability cases on the day 6 and 2 more profitability cases on day 7. In addition, a lot of this is underpinned by you doing cases with other people. Our diagnostic sessions and the structure sessions are ideally done with an expert, a coach who knows what they're doing, knows what to look for. If y'all want shortcuts, that is the only viable way that you get shortcuts that actually lead you to success, is by having somebody who knows what they're doing say, you don't need to do more of this, you need to do more of that instead. A case partner is also really fantastic. And in just a few weeks, our new case partner program, which is in beta on our platform, will be available for y'all to practice cases with one another using our case library and using our case scoring guide. And so if you are already in one of those beta testing groups, make sure that you do that. Give us any feedback. It's working great right now. We have tons of sessions that are happening inside that program. But doing those with a partner or with a coach in this process, y'all cannot get smart by watching for too long without ripping the Band-Aid off and working with somebody out loud. So that is one of the most important pieces of this week 1 overview. So why do we have you start your prep with market sizing? Market sizing can be a part of round 1 interviews, first of all. So if you get a round 1 interview and you can't pass it because we could have told you something that you needed to know and we didn't, that's on us. If we tell you and you don't do it, then it's on you. And so this can be used standalone as a round 0 when you're networking with people. Literally a week ago, just met with somebody who had interviewed with a healthcare consulting firm. They got a market sizing question inside their first networking conversation, not an interview, nothing scheduled, just to like, hey, how do you handle this? If you're at a non-core school, if you're an undergrad, if you're interviewing through DEI hiring pathways, through special programs, this is a very common round 0, as well as a round 1. And market sizing matters. In fact, at Bain, when we were doing interviews in our first round, and this is modified a little bit, so it's not as much of a rule as it was when I was there. Every single person who went through a first round got 1 market sizing question and 1 business strategy case. What does it teach you? How to structure in an unstructured environment, how to develop assumptions, how to walk through your calculations, doing math out loud. Everything that I need to see later in the case, I can see with a ton less work on my part by just asking you a simple unstructured question like a market sizing question. In addition, I can see what insights you draw, if they're 2nd or 3rd level insights or just basic insights. And I think it's imperative that you start with at least 10 market sizing cases out loud. Until you can do these in your sleep, you're not ready to move on. I have never in my life, and I've met a lot of them so far, thousands, I have never met a McKinsey, Bain, or BCG consultant who could not do one of these with excellence on a first try. So they practice to get there, but it's really essential that y'all understand what this looks like. Are there any quick questions from y'all about what we do here? I'm gonna run you through a little quick test.
Yeah.
Why market sizing?
Yeah, quick market sizing question. What is the reasoning behind introducing market sizing exercises before learning the math concepts typically used to solve them?
Great. So different answer for when we're in the live sessions and when we are, using this structure. So we actually do teach you market sizing through our case course before we ask you to do market sizing cases. In just a second, I'm going to do one with you. I'm going to just walk through the thought process that we would be expecting and looking for. But market sizing is the great equalizer. It teaches you so many business concepts, including revenue, market share, and key levers of growth for organizations operationally that you need to get through practice, not through theory. And so I often find that if you practice them, you can extrapolate the theory from them more easily than learning the theory and then extrapolating them. When we're in a live session, we actually teach it to kind of test the readiness of the group. And even with top MBA programs, they're often just not ready. And that helps me know where to lean in on pain points inside the sessions and also what to recommend folks do. Anything else, Jay?
No, that's it for now.
Okay, great. So let's do one. Size the market for baguettes in Paris. I'm going to give you two timed minutes to do this. Go. When you're done and you have an answer, type your answer and the number of steps that you wrote down on your paper into the chat. If you want to use ChatGPT to do this, you will fail your case interviews. So I would encourage you not to do that. 1 minute remaining. 10 seconds remaining. Type your answer into the chat along with the number of steps that you took. And I don't have a lot of time, but I've got about 2 minutes to hot seat somebody on this. Who wants to go? Raise your hand.
Great. Seeing some answers pop into the chat here. And if you want to be on the hot seat for 2 minutes, raise your Zoom hand and we will let you unmute.
Come on, this is a game-changing opportunity for y'all. I will not embarrass you. But the question was asked before, why do you practice without necessarily understanding all the business concepts or the theory? I'm going to demonstrate what we learn from this right now. And we've got some great answers. Okay, I'm not going to make anybody do it. I kind of want to call on Arjun though. Arjun, would you do it for me?
Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Thank you so much for
Arjun,
choosing.
would you just walk me through your process? I'd love to know how you were thinking about it.
Sure. So baguette, on the first step I thought was the population of Paris. Uh, I assumed the number 2 million people living in Paris,
Okay.
out of which I then my next step was baguette is a very breakfast thing or something that a family eats in the morning. So I divided the population into household of four. So I came down to 500,000 people. And out of
Okay.
which I just I took a chance saying that 50% of that household would be eating a baguette every morning in their breakfast. So I'm down to 250,000 people. Uh, and they would eat, I assumed the price of a baguette of 4 euros.
Okay.
Yep. So I came down to 10 million. And then I guessed they would eat a baguette on an average of 4 days a week. So that's when I reached
Awesome.
the answer of 40
Okay, so
million.
so sorry, let me just make sure I heard the numbers. You said there were 250,000 households a day that would eat it for times 4 euros, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. But so you got what was the number that you got out of that? I'm lost
Oh, so sorry.
the count.
250,000 people, families eating a baguette of 4 euros. So I came
Uh-huh.
down to a 10 million figure.
Okay. Wait,
And
four times 250,000 is, how'd you get 10?
oh, sorry, a million that would be.
There we go. Yep. Okay. That's where I lost you. I was like, I think I missed a step in there, but that was just math. Okay, cool. Yep. So a million. Awesome. And then the other 50%, do they eat any baguettes?
No, I took only that part of counted that part of the equation.
Okay, awesome. Okay, cool. So that's a million. Sorry, keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to make sure I was tracking.
Uh, that would be a million, and they would eat a baguette for not all 7 days, but they would, of course, eat that for a greater part of the week. So I multiplied that by 4 days of a week because a baguette is a very recurring item that is sold. So they would eat 4 times a week. So that's what I got to 4 million.
Okay, awesome. And so you had 40 million before, I think, just with a different number.
Yeah.
But you were doing a weekly number. How would you
Yes.
annualize that, or why would you annualize that?
Uh, Honestly, I just thought that not everyone, not the family won't be eating the same breakfast every morning. But baguette is a very stable breakfast for every French person. So they would eat that for a greater part of the week.
Great. I love it. Arjun, thank you for walking through that with me. I would give you a 2 out of 4. So if our on our rating scale is a 1 to 4. And there were a couple things that were really good about it. You broke it down using a lot of the structure that I'm going to show you on this page here. And I don't know if you've practiced one of these out loud before, but well done just for ripping off the Band-Aid.
No, honestly,
Some What's that?
that was my first try.
Good. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to answer one of the questions that came through before, which was like, why do you practice before you teach the business concepts that go underneath it? It's because I think that one of the best ways to learn market sizing and just case interviews in general is trying to explain something that you definitely don't understand and realizing in the process that you don't understand it and then going and pursuing understanding in a very targeted way. It helps you be faster and more precise in the way that you think about it. So what I loved about what you did is you kind of started out, you said, hey, I took 5 steps. What I would have really loved for you to do, and this is what a 4 out of 4 would be, is where you would say, hey, here are my steps, right? 1, population of Paris. 2, size of household. 3, percentage that eat baguettes. 4, frequency that they eat. 5, the euros that they eat, right? And then go back, because that was really the process that you used, and then you'd go back and you'd apply the numbers to it. And then I wouldn't have done quite as drastic of assumptions as you did, but that's another piece of what we're looking for here. You had decent nuance. What you were trying to do is make a very simple throughput of one calculation. What I really want is more of a matrix like this. So I want you to have population of Paris, and then I want you to break out. And households is one way to do it. Population by age is another way. Households by income is a different way that you could think about doing it. You could also think about businesses. You could say like, hey, I'm going to focus on the restaurant segment and I'm going to go after that. So this is a kind of structure that could get very complicated. Our job is to definitely keep it simple if I only give you a couple minutes of guidance, but also to be quite comprehensive. And so what I really like about this structure and what I would have loved to have seen in yours is to tell me, right, you said 50% eat every day, but then you said, actually, they don't eat every day. They eat 4 times a week, right? So then it would be like, hey, 50% eat four times a week, 25% eat 2 times a week on average, and then another 25% eat once a week on average or 0 times a week on average. But usually we end up with different gradations of certain segments, which gives us the best insights because I think your number, right, 4 million times 50 would have been 200 million euros a year spent on baguettes, which by the way, now you can understand why some micro bakeries do very, very well, even in the US and other places, because bread is a constant consumable. But it's also really, really fascinating to break it down, not just into what the total number is, but what the biggest part of the market would be. So anyhow, just want to make sure you want to highlight some of those numbers. When I asked the question, to go back again to the early premise, I asked, size the market for baguettes in Paris. What if you didn't know that you were supposed to size it in euros? Most of you probably didn't. That That's also an important part of the training that happens here. Every market inside case interviews is sized in terms of dollar amounts or euro amounts, because that is the denominator for every market share calculation going forward. And market growth is also done on a dollar basis, not on a units basis. So again, there's a lot of learnings that start to happen when you realize what you don't know. And I think that gap pursuit is one of the biggest drivers in why our method is successful for this. Just a few key kind of like taglines to complete this process. You do, for all case interviews, also need to know, and you need to know right at the beginning of your prep, that you have to know the number of people that live inside the US and the population of 2 countries per continent, the population of the city that you live in, and the population of any city that you applied for or will be interviewing for. If you don't know that already, that is information you can use ChatGPT for. You can pull up all of that data and store it so that you can remember as you're using those for reference points inside these case interviews. In addition, in the first part, in week 1 of the case interview prep plan, we teach you how to make a structure. And to the earlier question, we don't teach you what to put inside the structure yet, but we teach you that you need a 4 category, 3 data point structure in order to show off inside a case interview. And if you have less than that, it's going to come across as weak. So we want to make sure that you know how to do that in the very beginning. So we're going to teach you through structure videos and through early structure drills, how to begin that process. Your structures are not going to be interview ready at the end of week 1, but you will know how to make one. Will know what you need to do, and you will know where your gaps are, which is a really big part of that first session. Most of our coaches, after they do a diagnostic session, the next session that they do with someone is a structure drill session, where they work on, okay, awesome, we're gonna drill profitability structures until I feel confident that you understand the problems that you're gonna solve and can make structures to solve them. And you can do it within 2 minutes in a 4x3. Move on to the next kind, which is market study. Move on to the next kind, which is M&A. So before you get into deep parts of the process, we really help you make sure that your market sizing is in place and you can build a great looking structure. Moving on to week 2. Week 2 is focused on math, fast math, and brainstorming. This is really focused on understanding what you need to do for math. So we have you walk through the mental math course, and we have you do drills, multiplication, division, percentage. Then we have you do a math session. So in our math sessions that our coaches host, they go through 1 verbal, 1 chart, and 1 graph question. They all use different cases where they're doing this, but they really probe you in how you're calculating out loud, how much you're saying out loud. Many of you are too quiet when you're going through the math questions, and we can't get a sense of your thought process. If you noticed, when I followed Arjun and we kind of pulled back the layers a little bit, some of it started falling apart a little bit. So Arjun had a great start, but we want to get you guys to offers. So not great starts, but great offers. So we want to make sure that you know how to get to where you need to go. Then after that, we have you do 40 grab bag math drills, which is mixing and matching different math drills, and 5 math video drills, which are, hey, we read out a math prompt as if you're in the case and then time you as you're working on doing those drills. 10 exhibit drills, and then more math video and exhibit drills on the next day, as well as watching the videos on the case course, focused on the creative sections. On day 7, we have you do 5 brainstorming drills. Creative or brainstorming questions are usually the 3rd most challenging thing inside the case. Structure is number 1, math is number 2. This kind of like structured or creative brainstorming is number 3. What you'll find is that a lot of the structure that we do in week 1 and a lot of the business understanding that we pursue in week 3 helps you build better case creative questions. But we work again on form at the end of week 2. Any questions about week 2 before we move on into some of the theory? Somebody asked, are we going to get the drills forwarded to us? So we link through to the drill master pages from the case prep plan, but you do have to be at a university partner of ours. If you are, and they've purchased the subscription for Management Consulted, you have complete unlimited access to that program, or you need to purchase the all access pass from us or be a black belt or a super prep member to have access to do those drills. When we diagnose why you guys battle with case math, it is not usually because you can't do math. Many of you are so smart. Most of you are smarter than any of us. But when we recap what we're solving for first, and then the data that you're going to need at the beginning of the case math process, sometimes that's the only tweak that you're looking for. The last time we did a New York case camp, we went through this exact type of experience. And I worked with a woman from Yale, and she said, "Hey, I'm bad at math." And I said, "Great, let's talk about math." And she said, "Awesome, let's do some math." And so we did some math, and I was like, "You're not bad at math, you're bad at listening." We were, and you know, she kind of laughed, and then she cried, and then we figured it out. But ultimately, the beginning of the case math process really helps you understand what you're solving for. Then a lot of people skip over inside case math, reading out the algebra that they're about to do. They don't tell me their plan, they just start doing math. Problem is, sometimes you don't know what math you're doing, you get yourself super tangled up and you can't get out of it. So explaining, here's what I'm going to do, here's the data that I need. Oh, I need to ask you for some more data is really great pre-planning. That's really based on McKinsey math, which is, I think, the hardest math that you'll get inside the case interviews, but it works across other interviews as well. Number 3 is the solve, which is actually when you do the math itself, right? When you kind of calculate 250,000 times €4, and you're practicing out loud the interpretation of how that math is going. You're not just trying to demonstrate that you can do math, you're trying to demonstrate that you're fluid with numbers, that you're confident with math. And then number 4 are the insight levels. The 3 levels of insight are number 1, what the numbers say. We call that level 1 insight. Number 2 is what action the organization should take. And number 3 is the next piece of data you should look for. And a lot of people just tell us, like, the number is 100 million. I don't care, right? Tell me what I'm going to do about it. Tell me what we need to do next. That's what I'm looking for inside the interview. Questions about case math or case creative before we move on to business formulas? Great. Awesome. Are you expected to have insights for market sizing or just cases? You're expected to have insights for market sizing if you want a 4 out of 4. So going back to this market sizing question, the baguettes in Paris, right? It's not just like, here's a number. It's, hey, like, I think that the biggest buyers of baguettes in Paris are probably the residents of Paris. So if I were thinking about marketing, the ones that I would be interested in marketing to are this 21 to 40-year-old kind of household segments. 60% of them buy, they buy around 6 times a year, but they buy 2 baguettes at a time. And so I think that's going to be one of our largest segments. I'm really interested in marketing to that segment. I would also be interested in understanding, this visitor category, how substantial it is when I think about the next steps. So what you would want to apply it, not just say like, this is the number, but if I was a bakery and I was thinking about marketing baguettes, who would I talk to? How would I price it? Would I create a baguette subscription service? Would that work in Paris, right? Culturally, like, knowing what you know. So the insights are a very rich part of the conversation as well. Love it. Okay, going back. Let's talk about week 3. So week 3 really dives into business formulas. And we do this in 2 ways. We teach you through individual case types that apply the business formulas, and we also teach you the formulas as well. And so in the case course, we have you complete the market study case portions, and we have you do 1 market study case. What is a market study case? A market study case is one of these 3 case types: revenue growth, market entry, and market share decline. So again, in week 1 of the case categories, we had you go through the profitability cases. Now we're returning back to frameworkings and these more advanced, more versatile frameworks that you'll use inside the case interview. In addition, we have you do more structured video drills that apply to these specific types, and we encourage you to do more out loud practice with a partner or a coach. 1 M&A case on day 4 and day 5, along with case course insights for both of those days for M&A, and then 2 level 2, on day 6, a level 2 profitability case. So level 2 profitability cases are 4 final rounds. So here we are at day number 19 in week 3. Day 5 is day number 19 of the total prep process. At that point, you should be ready for a first round interview. But we don't leave it there, because we want you to be ready for a second round interview before you walk into a first round interview, so that you can make sure you get to the second round interview. And we also have you do 5 exhibit drills, pushing back into those insights that you got in week 2. And then we have you complete on the final day 2 level 2 profitability cases. Here are the formulas that you need to know for case interviews. We walk through these on the platform, the subscription platform that our partners and our premium clients have access to. And we walk through a teaching video on all of these. If y'all are from a computer science, an engineering, a science, a liberal arts major, religious studies, et cetera, like you can do cases 100%, but you have to understand these concepts. You need to know how to use this language and measure every one of these formulas. If you don't, you won't have the material that you'll need to build the structures at the beginning of the case, to build the creative brainstorming, and to do the math questions, which are really the three main pieces of the case at large. In addition, our case problem matrix highlights in that teaching in week 3 really how to use a hypothesis. We always use hypotheses at the end of cases, at the end of the first part of the case where you're structuring your problem and explaining what you think. But some cases have what we call an open hypothesis, which is where you say, hey, this is what I think the issue is. This is the area of preference that I'm planning to diagnose first. A closed hypothesis is a question that mandates an answer. Should we buy this company? Yes or no? Should we close this division in Mexico? Yes or no? Should we price this at $3 more? Yes or no? And that specific yes or no question is going to lead itself to not just a here's where I want to look, but here's what I think the answer is. And I'm confident that my approach will give me all of the data that I need to directly answer that question, yes or no. So I've put on here some yellow categories of cases: profit scenarios, market entry, financial buyer, and strategic buyer, that tie very closely together for these yes or no questions. When you get those kinds of cases, you almost always will make a yes or no hypothesis at the beginning. One other thing to note here is that our case library, over 600 cases, is organized based on these case types. When somebody comes to us 3 days before an interview and they say, I hope I'm ready, and we say, heck no, you're not. We only have 3 days, but we still will send you back to do a ton of work in that 3 days. What I'm trying to do for all of y'all is save you from having to do an emergency work at the end. I want you to build your structures in this order, because profitability is the building block, right? Market sizing builds all of the core structures. Profitability is the building block of case. Then market study applies levers, especially on the revenue side, that you'll pull inside profitability. M&A is, hey, how many dollars are you willing to put on the line to get profitability? So it all ties back together. It's all kind of cyclically focused, but if you move in a linear way, you will leave no type of business or business problem unturned, and that's going to be really powerful for you as you're building your structure. In week 4, by the way, any questions about week 3 about math or advanced cases and formulas?
How would you advise us to follow through well and make the most out of this case prep? Do you have any tips?
Great. We built this so that you, students, DIYers, can work through it from beginning to end and succeed by passing at least a first round interview. So that's one thing, is that, like, I would recommend that you take 0 shortcuts if you are DIYing this. The only way that I would permit a shortcut and still think that you would have an equal chance to get an interview is if you use a coach who is an expert, who's able to say, actually, you don't need this step here on week 3. You don't need steps 4 and 5 because you worked in private equity and you understand M&A cases. So let's skip those. But you really need help with exhibits. So let's emphasize that again. So, they're not necessarily going to not do pieces of this, but they're going to emphasize the pieces that really are valuable or that really matter.
Great. One more question here. How would you recommend balancing like resume finalization, networking, and case prep, all at the same time while following this plan?
Yeah. So this is case only, and this should take you under 1 hour a day if you do it every single day, right? So y'all may have been following us for a while. Some of you are super new here. If you're new, you're very welcome. If you've been following us for a while, we told you to start 12 weeks ago, right? So now we're kind of like, look, we know that you only have 4 weeks. Later in the summer, we know that some of you are only going to have 1 week. We will do everything in our power to help to get you ready. But it is optimal for you to do this and to do it in advance, because if you wait until you have interviews to do all of this, I want you to see all of what you need to do then to know that it's going to be super. Our average number of cases that someone has done out loud when they successfully get an offer was 22 last year. 22 cases out loud. And so this case prep plan is 28 days, and you do 20 cases inside the case prep plan during this process, as well as drills, which I think gets you over that hurdle very, very sufficiently. How do you do the other things? First of all, you need to get your resume ready and you need to get it in. You need to network with 1 to 2 people in each of your firms. But at this point, like, networking is not going to be the most important thing that you do. It's going to be a valuable piece of your process, but you shouldn't overemphasize that either. Fit preparation is going to be essential. You can and should write down your stories, but I honestly would allocate somewhere around 30 minutes a day to fit prep, networking, and resume. The resume you guys can take off your plate. If you want to just have us edit it for you, let us help you. We make it really great. You can use it for all of your interviews. The cover letter, we touch it and personalize it and make it really awesome. The firms know when AI has been used to write your cover letter. And so we need you to personalize and really zing your story inside the cover letter. Again, on the panel last week, somebody said, yep, we read cover letters before we read resumes. It's really important to us. Super, super important to note that. So yeah, I would just recommend that you do like a very focused job on your resume. Get that out of the way. Do a little bit of fit prep on the same days that you do these case prep plans. And then just know, like, you are going to feel a different level of motivation when you have the interviews in hand, but you just cannot start from zero there and expect to be highly successful. Great. Let me just review the case prep plan. I'll then go over a couple of checkpoints and then we'll take questions. So overall, right, week 1 is 10 market sizing and 4 profitability cases, case structure drills, 1 diagnostic case, and 1 structure session, ideally with an expert coach. Again, this is meant to be used inside our Black Belt program as well as for DIY. If some of you have access to phenomenal people who can help you, great. If you don't, and you don't have budget for working with us in one of our programs, work with a peer and get everything out of it that you possibly can. You can absolutely break in. You just are going to have to work extra to do it. No problem, though. Week 2, math and brainstorming, right? Case math, brainstorming, and exhibit drills, 1 math and 1 brainstorming session during that week. The week 3 business formulas, 5 out loud level 1 cases and 3 level 2 cases, as well as mastery of core frameworks. And week 4 is exposure to different case types and firm styles, practicing your fit stories, and 3 complete mock cases where you don't know what to expect. You're kind of outside of the prep plan at that point, but of course still in the prep process. And here are some of the key milestones. By June 20th, we would expect that you've completed that step 1 of the process, right? 10 market sizing cases, listen, watch, and co-work through 5 full live cases, and completing your diagnostic case. By July 1st, we'd like for you to complete the 2nd and part of the 3rd week, right? Mastery of core frameworks, beginning to blend frameworks to showcase business acumen, 10 total out loud cases with a partner, and then fit prep, including practice telling your story. Finally, by the interviews, we want you to pursue fast and accurate mental math, comfort with charts and graphs, structured creative brainstorming, and exposure to different case types and firm styles. We will keep our inboxes open. You can email us. You can LinkedIn me. In fact, I'll drop my LinkedIn into the chat while we're here on the call. Or actually, Jave, if you're able to do that, that'd be even better. I'll just keep answering questions. But like, I just want you guys to know, we're not telling you this to try to add burden to you. We're trying to explain it's a lot of work. And if you do the wrong things, it's whatever I just told you, plus all of those wrong things that you're doing. So I think it's really optimal to follow this prep process in order from beginning to end, and then write us after you get into the final round, and we'll help tweak whatever you need to do if you don't feel 100% ready. But you're gonna be ready for the interviews if you follow everything that's in this prep plan. Japheth, what other questions do we have that are coming through the QR through the chat?
My gosh, I'm answering a ton of private questions about like students at a partner school and some sending information on that.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to be partners with management consultant and your school doesn't already partner with us, that's how you get discounts and access. It's incredibly affordable, and we love to help schools and universities. You can just send us a message to team@managementconsulted.com, and we will get a conversation going between you and your school in order to help do that. If you're part of a club, we can help clubs as well. It's a really easy process and very, very valuable for universities. So if you're not already a partner, we have over 130 partners. We love what we do with universities. If you're here from a partner university, hi. But if you want to join that list, and we would love to support you too. What
Yeah.
else? What else can I answer for y'all? Questions about the process. I know, like, we did this early. We know that when y'all want to talk about this is like July 10th, right before your interviews are happening. But we are doing it now on purpose because we want you to get a jump on it. If you don't work with us, which again, I would love for you to, I think that this is one of the most strategic investments you can make in your future and in your career. And it pays itself off in 5 days of working for one of these organizations. So it is a really fast payback period, one of the biggest return and fastest payback periods of any kind of investment that you'll make in your life. But I know not everybody can do it, and I get that. So we'll do everything we can to help you no matter where you are.
I got
Awesome.
a
Okay,
private
so
question here. I'll
yep, go ahead.
take one. Any tips for like developing a networking strategy this late in the season? And I know we just covered this on a podcast that we'll release here in the next week or so. But anything you want to voice over now?
Yeah. You said about case prep. Can you start it now? Is that what it is, Jay?
Networking
Oh,
strategy.
networking. Oh, yeah. You can start it now. Yeah, I mean, the resume drops are still 2 weeks away. Consultants are as deadline driven as you guys are. So you just need to let them know, like, hey, can we get on the phone on Thursday? Like, you don't have time to be polite anymore. So you kind of have to let them know, hey, I'm applying. I'd love to get on the phone with you just to chat about this office. Try to, highlight a question that you're trying to get answered before you apply, like which office to apply for is a really good one. So, hey, I'm thinking about the Chicago or the Austin office. I'd just love to understand some of the differences between them because I have to put preferences on my application is a really good reason for somebody to jump on the phone with you. And then you can kind of get together quick and dirty, have an awesome connection that will make a difference. And then if they are willing to refer you, then whatever that office is becomes your number one office. Some of you asked also, can you send your resume and cover letter if you're in the black belt program? Yeah, we won't edit it if you don't. You can send us a question of whether or not you need an edit, and we'll tell you yes, no, as well as a score. Right, this is a 1, 2, 3, or 4 document, and here's what we could do with it. So yeah, we're happy to help you do that. But like we're not going to help you fix the resume. We have a lot of people that pay us to do it. And we have to protect our bandwidth for that. So we can tell you whether it needs it or not, but we're only going to help the people that are either in our premium programs. We do have some universities where they pay to have the students' resumes reviewed. So if you're in one of those, then of course you know who you are already. But yeah, happy to do that. Is it better to send in a resume first or network with 1 to 2 people? 1,000% of the time, network first, and then send your resume in at the end. For market sizing questions, are there strategies or ways to sanity check our numbers as we follow the process in real time? Yeah, like y'all can look in ChatGPT to see what the answer is, but you need to understand how ChatGPT got to the answer. And ChatGPT is not necessarily going to be right or even close. So you need to have the critical thinking at the end to say like, hey, my number was different. Why was it different? How would I have adjusted this to get this number? And you have to kind of push into it to understand it a little bit further. But yeah, I mean, like in the old days, we would just Google the answer. One of the questions that we give inside some of our other sessions involve like a consumer product in France. Great. So like when I ask you that question, just like this baguettes question, and I looked up the answer, I was able to figure out that the structure that I did and the numbers that I came up with were wrong. But my question was, why are they wrong? Why were they different? And then I was able to close the gap for that. Some of you are asking if Mark Cosentino's book, Case in Point, is still relevant. We love Mark Cosentino, consider him the godfather of case interviews. If you find reading helpful, then that's great. I just would like for you to know that I read Case in Point and then I had to throw it out the window in order to actually succeed because when I did a mock interview with somebody from McKinsey, she said I knew nothing, and it was evident that I'd only read a book. So you have to recognize that the book has limitations. It does not prepare you for interviews. It makes you feel smarter. It helps with understanding, but it does not prepare you for interviews. The two are very different. And so while we love Mark, we have a book too that we say the same thing about. Like, if you read our book, you will fail the case interview. It's not because our book is bad. It's our book is phenomenal. It's because the book itself is the wrong way to practice for case interviews. It would be like being like, look, I'm reading a book on sailing, and then I'm planning to sail like, from LA to Catalina Island, which is a 13-mile sail. Like, that's cool, right? I'm totally going to make it. No, you're not going to make it at all because you know nothing about sailing because you were never in a boat. And so you cannot learn theory. When I took flying lessons, same thing. Like, it's good to know in your brain, but honestly, like I lack a lot of confidence in what that knowledge gives you when you're actually trying to fly the plane. Are we targeting the US audience, or is this plan applicable for Europe and the UK? Yes, it's applicable everywhere. Obviously, timelines are a little bit different. And so, but like many of you, if you're applying even in those categories, I would say are too late. I would love for you not to have 4 weeks to do this plan, but I'd love for you to have 3 to 4 months. It gives you the opportunity to really dive in the middle, or if you find a pain point, to lean in on it. Like, in reality, if you guys are working with a coach and you come to week 4 and they're like, hey, you've got a real problem with this specific type of BCG case, we would love to have time when you figure that out earlier on in the process to lean into that. If you're at one of these earlier sections, they're like, wow, you have a real problem understanding market study cases. Instead of doing the 3 that are pre-planned inside here, we would like for you to do 10 of those. So we want you to flex where your gaps are so you can really lean into that as well. Buffer time for those who want to interview around December. So if you want to interview around December and you're in an MBA program, I said earlier, I would start and do step 1 or week 1 before you start. I would do week 2 before Thanksgiving, week 3 before Christmas, and then week 4 after that. If you're going to interview before Christmas, you just move the later 3 parts of that timeline up by 1 month. Yeah, how much time do we practically have with MC Professionals? We take one of the proposed programs. You have 8 one-on-one sessions with Black Belt, which is the basic, as well as a resume cover letter. Or if you already have a resume cover letter or have already applied and already have an interview, you can opt for just 10 one-on-one sessions. You also get 30 minutes with Katie in a career strategy session. And then you get time in a cohort call with all of us, as well as just like unlimited email feedback, right? You just ask us. Like, if you need help, we want to help you. We want you guys to get offers. We want to help get you unstuck. We do not handhold. We don't come after you and tell you, hey, it's Tuesday, you have to submit your application this Friday. We don't do that. That's not our job. But we definitely support you throughout the whole process. Any tips for networking and developing a strategy for that, even though it's getting later in the season? We have so many tips on networking. For those of you that are partners or have the All Access Pass, we have a networking course, really worth watching. It was one of the first things that I did when I bought Management Consulted, was I created that course. I think that it's an incredibly valuable resource. We recommend that I'm going to tell you one thing on the session today, the 2, 2, and 2 rule, which is that you write to 2 people at the firm. You write them 2 emails within 2 weeks. The first email is, hey, can we meet on Thursday at 2 p.m.? The second email is, hey, Thursday's coming. Is that a good time for you? Or is there another time that would work for you? And those emails, you will be surprised if you write a great email using our pattern that's inside that course, are going to be super, super success drivers for you. Are there payment plans for the All Access Pass for students or postdocs? It's $700, Shruti. There aren't payment plans, but you can put it on the credit card, so you can be kind of clever about when you do that, maybe right after a billing cycle closes, and then you have, a month and a half or so to be able to pay it off yourself. We did test out payment plans. They failed. You guys don't really want them. You want access to everything right up front. And so we couldn't give you full access without that process. And so without it, it just doesn't really make sense. So yeah, we tried them. It was a great experiment that failed. Awesome. Is there a major difference between applying at the priority application deadlines? Yes. Only apply at the priority application deadlines. You will have a better opportunity to win. They may not even hire this year. Like y'all are watching what's happening in the macroeconomic news. Tons of uncertainty. Firms aren't sure either. For them, the second hiring season is akin to them hiring in the spring next year, which is almost what they did last year. They really pulled back on hiring. They had 2 dates, but the first one was basically where they filled most of their slots. They take just a limited number of people through the second one. Well, then they reopened hiring in April of this year for people that were just graduating. So just pay attention to that. Amazing. Good. Well, thank you all for joining us. We hope that you really got a lot of value out of this, and the detail, the specificity. We've thought through it. Japheth, if you haven't already, we can pop that QR code for the case prep plan into the chat, and we'll also send it to everyone who registered in the follow-up email. We have a ton of free content. If you're not already subscribed to YouTube, please jump on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. Our private boot camps, including Case Camp in New York, is amazing. Self-study training materials, and then finally our one-on-one editing and training. We'd love to help you guys succeed. Thanks so much for joining us today. We really value you and your time. Hope we got a lot out of it.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. I know I was managing a billion private messages. So if I wasn't able to get to you, just please send an email. The email is team@managementconsulted.com, and we'll get you those the partnership info and everything else. All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you on a future call. Cheers.